Liberty Bleeds Silver issued a challenge that I just happened to come across earlier today, and that is to post your collection of bars larger than 1 troy ounce. And as it happens, I had pulled a whole bunch of product out of the vault earlier, so I could inventory it and produce a series of videos coming up later on this month or next month. And I just happen to have these pieces sitting here, so I thought, what the heck? I'll go ahead and take some pictures and put them up online. And once the photographs were done, the tripod was there, my camera was here, so I figured I'd go ahead and shoot a quick video. If you are new to the channel, my name is White Cross. You can call me Dub C, you can call me White. I answer to pretty much anything. And if you are new to the channel, I would encourage you to subscribe to the channel, become part of this community. You returning subscribers, as always, I thank you guys for being with me here. I also like to begin each of my videos with a simple disclaimer. I am not a financial advisor. I'm not trying to offer any kind of financial advice. I'm simply trying to share some of my experience, in this case, a little bit of my collection, from having bought and sold precious metals and rare coins going back the last 30 or 40 years. So this collection is, like I said, just the cast or poured bars in that 10-ounce class or 5-ounce class series. We call them 10-ounce or 5-ounce class because of the point when these pieces were being made. This would be primarily in the mid to late 1970s. The manufacturing process hadn't become sophisticated enough to repeatedly pour exactly 10-ounce or exactly 5 ounces of silver. Consequently, when these bars were done cooling, somebody had to individually weigh them, and then somebody had to individually stamp the weight on them. So it makes for a little bit more of an interesting old school style bar with individual weights and measures on it. I think it adds just a little something to these bars. The majority of these bars came from the Lydian Hoard. That was my biggest silver purchase of 2023, with the exception of most of the Engelhard bars that you see here, and I'll talk about those in just a moment. If you have any interest in diving deeper into the Lydian Hoard, if you haven't already watched that series, I'll put a link down below to the Lydian Hoard video playlist, which contains, I think, 4, maybe 5 videos, kind of outlining how I started with these bars, coming across them at a local shop, continuing to buy them as the heirs to an estate brought them in, and finally securing the rest of this collection that you see here before you, again, with the exception of these Engelhard bars. So what you see here are quite a few bars by International Vaults Refining. I'll just go over some of these bars. This is a favorite of a lot of older bar stackers. They like these bars quite a bit. I do too. This one, a Hoffman and Hoffman bar. Quite a few of these bars in the collection as well. And then next on the list is this bar by Star Metals. This is a 2nd series bar from Star Metals. A lot of the bars in the Lydian Hoard had been untouched, we think, for probably the better part of 3 decades. And over a period of time, silver tends to oxidize. If we like the way that the oxidation looks, we call it tone, and it can be a very important factor in determining the desirability of coins, and I think also bars. It kind of reinforces their originality, the fact that these bars haven't been messed with for quite a long period of time. They haven't been cleaned or anything like that. If we don't like the color that the oxidation brings out, we tend to call it tarnish. And tarnish is kind of a darker gray color that, it's completely subjective. If you like it, it's tone, and if you don't like it, it's tarnish. Most of these bars have at least a little bit of tone to them. It's kind of a nice feature for them. There's a bar here by JJSR, this one with that SC countermark that you see here. There are a couple of those bars in this collection as well. Looking at some of the other bars here, this is an example of a Western States refinery. It's not the best example. You know, WSR's logo is really hard to read. I think you can see it primarily because of this tone, this kind of burnt umber, kind of orangish brown color that you see there. Western States Refinery, there were a few of those bars in the mix as well. This is the lone example of a bar by JKL. This is one of the heaviest bars from the Lydian Hoard at 10.67. This is the better part of 11 ounces. It's the heaviest bar, I think, of all the bars that were included in this collection. There is one bar, and I think this is it, by American Credit. This is American Credit with that Balthrop countermark down below. Very desirable bar. Would you believe that there was only one of these in the collection? Of course, lots of Star Metals bars. I'm not hating on Star Metals. They're a fine bar, but it's not like they have the oomph and the power of those American Credit bars. There are a couple of other manufacturers, I think, in the mix, but let's move on because Some of the more interesting bars that you see here are these Engelhard bars that I've got here. These are Engelhard 7th and 10th series P prefix bars. We know that going back quite a while, and we know that primarily because of allengelhard.com, one of the most important resources when it comes to looking at these older bars. We know that this is one of those earlier poured bars because of those cooling lines on the back and just the general state of this bar. These bars look a lot like this example that's up here. And this is actually an 11th series bar. So these bars came somewhat later. And unlike these 10-ounce 7th and 10th series bar, the P prefix bars, these 11th series bar are a little bit more polished and refined, literally polished. You can see the edges are a little bit more milled. I think they call them machined on allengelhard.com. So while they look very similar, it's the 11th series bars that are a little bit newer and just a little bit less crude. And I think that makes them, to me at least, a little bit less attractive. You know, when I was buying these earlier bars, these 10th and 7th series bars, way back in the day, I can remember being offered some of the 11th series bars and just saying, you know, it's not quite the same. You can tell that that was a later manufacturer, and that was just a wild guess. I didn't know that until we actually saw the information on All Engelhard, probably going back about 10 years now. And, you know, I probably turned my nose up a lot of those bars, and that was probably pretty foolish of me, because now, even though these are the later versions, these bars are still the better part of 35 years old now, and they are commanding a pretty strong premium. When I looked at these online on eBay recently, these bars were selling pretty close to $400 a piece, somewhere in that $350 to $400 range. I had the opportunity to buy these, and I picked up a few of them. You can see that there's probably half dozen up here at the top. And now, in retrospect, I kind of wish that I had snagged the rest of those. But isn't that always the case? Don't we always think that? We wish we could go back and do it all over again. I'm fortunate that I've got these pieces in front of us here. Next up, really briefly, you see a couple of 5-ounce bars from SilverTowne. Now, SilverTowne is a name that everybody who stacks is probably familiar with. They have been around forever. And they are a pretty respectable company, but something about them just kept me from really stacking them in any kind of depth. And I think part of the reason is I fell in love with these Engelhard bars when I was a lot younger, and they became kind of the bars that I sought out. And I think maybe part of that is the collector in me. I've been a collector since I was a little kid. And anytime you've got a unique serial number, you know, it just makes that bar a little bit more unique. It makes it specific. It makes it one of a kind. And I think that's probably what drew me to these Engelhard bars way back in the day. So when I was offered SilverTowne, often SilverTowne bars didn't come with serial numbers. So when I had the opportunity to choose between an Engelhard bar with a serial number, or a little bit later the Johnson Matthey, those extruded or minted bars from Johnson Matthey with serial numbers on them, those were the ones that I tended to pick up. But as it happens, I want to say probably 15, maybe 20 years ago, I was at a local shop with a little bit of money in my pocket. This was back when that was a little bit harder for me to come by, but my dealer had just taken in a couple of 5-ounce bars, and I've never been really deep on 5-ounce bars. It's really never been something that I had very many of. So when he offered to sell them to me, I figured I'd take a look at them, and he pulled out both of these bars. Now, ordinarily, I wouldn't have thought twice about them and I would have turned them down, but something about them sparked my interest. I have no idea what it is. It's just one of those happy accidents. So I picked up both of them, and I probably didn't pay very much for them at all. You know, I would guess I probably paid $15 or $20 a piece for them at the time. $5 an ounce. Let's call them $25 a piece, somewhere in that area. But as luck would have it, now, once again, we have All Engelhard as a resource, and All Engelhard does list SilverTowne bars. It turns out that this is actually a 2nd series bar from SilverTowne. This is one of the earliest bars that they ever released, and we know that because of the cooling lines in the back and the serial number. This bar dates to the early 1970s. I think All Engelhard gives it a date of 1973. A 2nd series bar, one of the oldest bars that SilverTowne ever released. This bar, which I was more fond of at the time, again, silly me, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. This is my favorite of those two bars. Would you believe that this is a 3rd series bar? So this is a very old bar as well, probably a little bit later than the 2nd series bar in terms of chronological order. maybe 1975, somewhere in there. So these two are very, very early, old, and highly collectible SilverTowne bars. Very fortunate to have those 5-ounce bars. I've got the one Engelhard 5-ounce poured bar, and if you saw the 2023 year in review, you know that this is one of the most interesting pieces of silver that I bought in 2023. Was able to get this from a friend of mine who sold it to me very cheap. Once again, shout out to you if you're watching. This is a nice bar. I don't know that I've ever really had that many Engelhard 5-ounce bars, so to be able to add this one to the stack at this point in my career is kind of neat. And you know, it just happened to be one of those that were in the mix here. So I'm fortunate to be able to share it with you guys here today. And then finally, the last group of bars would be these small bars that you see here. This one as well. We'll make a little pyramid of it. These bars are International Vaults refining, and if you did watch the Lydian Hoard videos, you know that these are discovery bars. So these bars had been unknown to the larger stacking community. It's very likely and even possible that there are other examples out there and other people have had these for years, but the stacking community, the vintage bar collecting community, had been unaware of their existence until I bought the Lydian Hoard. Again, this is a hoard that had probably not seen the light of day in 25 or 30 years. And what makes these bars interesting, all Engelhard estimates that there are probably only about 1,000 of these 5-ounce class International Vaults bars in the first place. But most of them actually have the International Vaults logo and stamping on the top of the bar. These bars have it on the side. What makes interesting, this whole aspect kind of interesting, is that you can actually see down here below, it says troy ounce really, really faintly there. My favorite pointer, I'll try to show you another example. Maybe we get a better example there, where it says troy ounce, and that means that the weight of the bar was intended to be stamped right here. That's the individual stamping that we talked about earlier. Once these bars cooled, you had somebody who would weigh them and then stamp the appropriate weight on them to the 100th of an ounce. And it's my contention, after looking at these bars, that the International Vaults probably had made these to be stamped on the side and realized after they had made the initial run of these bars that there just wasn't enough room to stamp this. It wasn't sufficient. So they stamped it on the top instead. You can see these digits would barely fit there and probably would lead off the edge of the bar. What does that tell us? Well, it's just a supposition and it's just a theory right now. But it seems logical that if that is the case, that these bars were probably prototype bars. International Vaults probably tried to pour a certain number of these bars with the intention of stamping that weight on the side. Once they got done pouring them and cooling, they realized that there just wasn't enough room on the side, so they stamped the weight on top. Now, later bars, or at least other bars in the 5-ounce series from International Vaults, have the entire logo on the top of the bar, like you see with this 10-ounce class, very much like that. So it stands to reason that the bars that had the logo on the side were a very early prototype or a sample pour, where they were going to stamp the number on the side, realized that they didn't have enough room, stamp the number on the top, and then began stamping the entire logo and the rest of the devices and information on the top of the bar. If that's true, that means that these side-stamped International Vaults bars, the 5-ounce class, are some of the very earliest and conceivably the earliest 5-ounce class bars. Once they started using the logo, there were a few bars that were issued very, very early on that didn't even have a logo on them. You could certainly say that those predated these. An interesting thing to at least theorize that these are the earliest bars. All Engelhard estimates that there are probably about 1,000 of these 5-ounce class bars that were made. They are incredibly scarce. If you've a collector of these series, you know that they are very difficult to find. All Engelhard now estimates that there are probably fewer than 10 of these 5-ounce class International Vaults bars that have the minted information on the side of the bar. So these are quite scarce. There you go. My 5 and 10-ounce poured silver bars to meet Liberty Bleed Silver's challenge of 1 ounce and above bars. I think that there are something like 60 bars here in this group. You can certainly freeze frame and count them all individually. That's, of course, including the 10 and the 5-ounce class bars. And again, this is just my poured and cast bar collection. The majority of my silver stack probably exists now in the form of silver 90%, silver eagles, rounds, and larger than 10-ounce class bars, quite a few 50-ounce, 100-ounce bars. So this is just a sampling of my bars, and again, just the cast and poured bars. So there's the answer to the challenge. Once in a while I get lucky and I just have the right things here in the right time, and it seemed like a good opportunity for me to go ahead and shoot a video, so here we are. If you have any questions about these bars, by all means, leave a comment down below. Once again, if you have not yet subscribed to this community, I would love to have you be a subscriber to this channel, become part of this community. I put out lots of information very similar to this. If you have any suggestions of other videos you'd like to see me make, by all means, leave a comment down below. I'd love to receive those. Hopefully we can take a look and see if I've got the knowledge base and the items that we can answer whatever questions you have. And as always, thank you for allowing me to be a part of your journey as you go deeper into the world of coins and physical precious metals.